Kari Hunnicutt. Wow. Such energy, such devotion. I start the conversation off with her spirit animal, which is the dolphin. Kari has a strong personal relationship with Jesus, with Christianity. I ask her about that too. I always try to understand the relationship there. And she spent time in Senegal helping build these Christian schools. She's got really, really interesting motivational stories about going over there and the impact and what was needed. And it's 10 years. And it's gone from 2 or 3 students to 300 students now. She's actually written a book as well, which was really, really interesting. But she devotes much of her success, her devotion, all to her faith, her relationship with Jesus Christ. And I admire that relationship, that devotion. It's really to see the change and to see how it motivates her and others is fascinating to me. Dormant Faith is the name of her book, and I ask her what she wants people to take away from it. But it's just a wonderful conversation with Kari, and I can't wait to see what comes next. Thanks so much for your time. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. And my goodness, Kari Hunnicutt, so excited to talk to you. So why are dolphins your spiritual animal?
Oh my gosh. I love that you are starting it off with this question. Man, dolphins are so incredible. They're just, yeah, they're my spirit animal because they're so playful.
Hmm.
They are so intelligent. Like I've studied them and even interacted with them in the wild. And just the way they communicate with each other, the relationship that they have with each other, and when they travel in their pods, and how they protect one another. Just so much about them is so incredible.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection, powered by Forza Dash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading Forza Dash MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the Forza Dash platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow. Now, don't they also believe they also are a bit, what's the term I'm going to use? But they, I forget the term, but they will attack others if they feel they're in, or what's the term there?
In danger, or if they're protective of others in their pods.
Yeah.
I think it's a rumor, but when I did some work with some special needs children and worked with them and getting in life jackets and eventually on a boat and then having encounters with wild dolphins. And, a lot of times people are afraid and they think, well, I don't want to get in the water because there's going to be sharks in the water too, and it's like, we always would say though, nope, when there's dolphins around, the sharks are afraid. Like they're going to be out in the deep end. They're not going to come anywhere close to those dolphins. So,
and why is that? Why are they afraid of dolphins? I didn't know this.
Well, because they can, how the dolphins can come together in a pod, and they
Ah.
can be much more intimidating and can attack. And even though it's not, I don't think their nature to be so aggressive, they definitely can be. And when they work together as a team, they're going to overpower a shark.
Very interesting. Describe your personal relationship with Jesus, Kari.
Oh, that's a good question. My relationship with Jesus is part of my everyday life. Um, it's definitely like any other relationship in my life that takes dedication. It takes my spiritual practices to make sure that I am in prayer, I am in the Word, in the Bible every day. I'm around other people, other believers in Christ too, that can encourage me in my walk. And yeah, he's part of my everyday life.
And how does he help and inspire you?
Oh man, in every way, because he is everything. So when um, I am weak, he is strong. And I find myself weak in a lot of areas.
Hmm.
And so I think it definitely helps me when I definitely feel my human nature and certain things, that we feel like, man, that very thing that I want to change and that I don't want to do, my human nature wants to do. And so, how do we fight that and how do we combat that? And that is 100% with, I think, tapping into God and his power
Hmm.
and having him reach us and touch us.
For those who don't have that relationship, it's tough to appreciate it.
Yes. Yes. I can see that. I can see that that would be very hard to understand. Um, and it is hard to explain it to people
Hmm.
who
Hmm.
don't have that and who don't believe it. But honestly, I don't know I don't know how people do it without that,
Hmm.
without him. To me, it takes more faith to think that you have it all under control and you can do it, and then also that there's nothing else to this life
Hmm.
if you don't have that. I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how they do it.
Hmm. Tell me about Senegal, Kari.
Senegal is a very special place in my heart. I actually got connected years ago through my church in Washington State. I used to live there, and my church was connected in adopting a village and helping people sustain life and work with them in this village and help their health hut develop. And they also sponsored children to attend a Christian school there. And so we had a presentation from an organization called Go on the Mission that came to our church, and they presented the opportunity to be able to go on a trip or to sponsor children to go um, that were involved in this school. And this was the first time that I really felt like saying yes to both. I
Hmm.
wanted to sponsor a child and I wanted to go on a trip to meet this child. And, there had been other opportunities before. I think we probably all have been faced with times in our life when we could sponsor children through a variety of different organizations and they tug at your heartstrings. But
Hmm.
this one was definitely one where I felt like we were connected. I knew this organization. I wanted to go, I wanted to be part of it and see how the organization operated, see how that money was really being used in this
Hmm.
part of the world, just to be more a part of it and see what was really happening there. So, it there's a lot of things that have to work out in family life to be able to take a trip like that, especially as a mom, with 4 kids, and you can have some guilt, I think, sometimes taking some time aside to take a big trip like this and leave your family and hope that everything's going to be okay at home. But
Hmm.
again, I think that was another way that God really paved the way and just all the pieces fell together so that I could go. And when I went, I don't think it's a coincidence either that my trip involved visiting a variety of different schools in the area. And I come from a background in education. So I'm a speech therapist by trade and have worked a lot in the school setting and worked a lot with children. And so this trip allowed me to see some of the schools and how they operated in the villages. And those were, run by the government. And in Senegal, every religion is taught in every school. It doesn't mandate what religion has to be taught, but it is included.
Hmm.
And so those village schools that were mandated and run by the government were mostly Muslim because it's a Muslim dominant country there. And so, and then the government, though, also has a lot of interruptions and protests and things. So every time the government would be having a problem, school would be closed. So these kids were getting interruptions in their school day very often. And then they weren't passing their exams to move on to the next grade.
Hmm.
So we got to see some of these patterns. And then other choices for education, some of these parents ended up sending their kids to school to learn about the Quran. And so they would send them away to be under the leadership of this Marabou. And the Marabou would supposed to be teaching them about the Quran and about the Muslim religion. And many times those kids we would see when we were there just roaming the streets. They were dirty, they were in holy clothes, they were clearly not taken care of. They would be holding buckets, begging for money. And it was heartbreaking to see these kids. And we were instructed, though, that we shouldn't really interact too much with them, that we could not give them any money, because their point in this was trying to meet a quota for their Marabou, for their leader. So if they didn't meet their quota at the end of the day, then they're often beaten and mistreated and then put in a room altogether, like a concrete room, and just in horrible living conditions. So I experienced that and my heart was broken, and I was trying to process what to do with all of that I just saw. And then we were also able to visit the Christian schools there. And one of the schools was kind of the model school that had been developed all the way from preschool up through high school. And they were just delightful to visit their school. They were so welcoming, so energetic and happy to invite us in and tell us about their school, show us all the different areas of their school. And then we went to a more remote school that was also a newer Christian school that was only developed from about preschool till fourth grade. This was about 10 years ago when I first went. And I had the opportunity to talk to the teachers and talk to the headmaster. And the headmaster at the time was a huge visionary. Like, his skills were definitely to just dream and think large scale. And he talked about how he started that school with just him and his two kids. And they would walk across the street every day, and some of the people in the community would be laughing at him and saying, "This is not a school with just you and your two kids." And when I went then, it was about 140 students or so. At that time, it had grown to
Wow.
be that. And they had already laid the foundation on the second floor and were ready for a couple more classrooms. And he had dreamed of having an IT and library wing, and eventually having an administration wing, for him and his assistant. Then a better preschool area, and dreamed of the land next door that was owned by a Muslim man who didn't want the school to have anything to do with that land and be able to expand into that place. And so, but he said we would love to acquire that land eventually. So then we could also build a secondary school. So then the kids here, but he said right now, when they finish fourth grade, they need to move on, and then they'll go into the public school. And so we just sat there, and he dropped to his knees, and he asked for prayer. And this is one of those moments that, again, you can't really explain, like you have to be there. But in talking about God and his power, like that was a moment that I felt the presence of the Holy Spirit so clearly, and like just got goosebumps. I just wanted to be, I didn't want to leave that prayer because I felt it so deep in my bones. And so much so that when I got back from that trip and I came home, I just couldn't stop thinking about that school and that vision, and what God was doing there, and how we could help, how we could be part of making this vision come true, because this area needed it so badly. And these kids, this was the best opportunity for their education, to break the cycle of poverty, to help them. And then also, that aligned with my values of also being able to learn about Jesus. And so I talked with Go on the Mission at the time, and I was like, I just really think I want to be part of this. I think we can be part of this. I think we can grasp onto it as a project. And how do we help this school continue to develop? And we're all sitting there just thinking of how grand, scale this is. And they're like, Kari, this is going to take a lot of time. This is going to take a lot of work. It's not going to be instantaneous. Like, we have to, make a long-term plan here, and we have to be dedicated to it. And I'm like, I'm in. Like, I've never been a project manager of any kind, but sign me up. Like, I'm ready to help in whatever way we can figure out to make this happen. And so, yeah, from there, it has again just been incredible. When you ask about these God moments, and my relationship with him and how I can feel, this is definitely one of those things that it's like, I couldn't have done this. I couldn't have made this happen. I didn't feel like I had the skills or the knowledge, but I definitely felt like he was in it, and he was moving the pieces and made this happen. So much so that over the last 10 years, and yes, it has taken time and dedication and devotion to it, and a lot of work, and a lot of people, getting on board. And we're still always looking for people to get on board. But now the school has over 300 students in it.
Wow.
And we have completed the library, furnished it with some books, and also have the IT wing in there. So they have computers for their classrooms. And
Wow.
when I went to do the ribbon cutting ceremony for that piece of the school, they were just so excited to be like, come here, come here, come here. Look, watch. We're going to turn off. Watch how fast this computer turns off and turns back on. And like, they were just thrilled by that alone. So to just look at that excitement, like, it still like gives me goosebumps. And so we got to see that completed. Now they have the administration wing too. They have the updated preschool wing. They acquired the land next door. The man ended up selling that property to the
Ah,
school, and actually, as we speak, the secondary school is under construction and is
wow.
going to be completed by the fall, so that next school year, now the kids don't have to leave the school, and they can stay all the way through. It's their 10th grade, which is their graduation level, before they decide if they're going on to trade school or college or whatever is next for them.
How inspiring, Kari.
So that's a long a long answer to your question about
Wonderful.
Senegal, but
Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah. it seems that you take these challenges kind of head on and you devote yourself to it. You're Ironman running it. You didn't care where you placed, you only cared if you placed.
Yeah, my goal in the Ironman was to finish. And you have 17 hours. You can finish it in 17 hours or under in most of the courses. And so when I decided that this was going to be another one of my crazy goals, I got connected with a coach. And that's exactly what I told him, because he kind of coaches athletes of all abilities. And so I tried also not to let it get in my head that I wasn't this elite, super fast athlete,
Mm,
and that I honestly didn't even believe or think that I could finish a full. I had done a few half Ironmans, um, but again, kind of did this just to see, like, how far can I go? How far can I push this? But really didn't know that I could complete the full thing. So that's even what I told him. I said, I'm in it. I will be like one of your most dedicated people who it sticks to their training plan and does it as long as I can. But I want to finish this thing in with a qualifying time of under 17 hours.
and that's exactly what you did.
Uh-huh. It is.
So, I've done a couple triathlons, some Olympics only though, but I
Oh, good
learned
for
to
you.
love the swim. I liked the bike, and I hated the run. How about you?
That's actually like very different from a lot of triathletes, but very similar to me actually. Like I love the water. Obviously, if I'm kindred spirits with the dolphins, like
Right.
water is my happy place and I feel relaxed. I really enjoy the water. A lot of triathletes are like, if I just didn't have to do the swim, like that would be
Right.
great. They think they sink or whatever, or um, but I'm like, no, I'm all about the water. I love the bike too. Biking, I really enjoy. I think I can enjoy the scenery. Love the different courses and even the training that it takes me on. And again, just the mental break that it gives me. I think that is some of my stress release too. The run is definitely not my thing, not my favorite. I think it's the hardest on my body too, and feel like
Yeah.
after all of my runs is when I would need to figure out, which is also hard for me, recovery and
Mm.
how to rest my body, how to get it to the point where I could truly recover and be ready for the more intense training to come. And probably the running is the area that took me to that place a lot more.
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
okay, I really need to figure out how to take a chill pill, I guess is how I call it in my head, like relax and really make sure that I take that time to recover.
Played soccer all my life, Kari, and, not the best
Oh,
coaching as a kid, and the punishment would be, "Go run a lap. Go run, go run." So that gets instilled in you at a young age that running is
that's a
punishment.
punishment. Yes. Yes, I can see that too. Like, this is not fun.
Yeah, it's not "Oh, now I gotta run.
Yeah.
Ah, God." And plus, like you said, it just pounds on your knees and your hips, and, it's a
Mhm.
it's not the best thing for you. So, tell me what you want the reader to come away with when they read your book, Dormant Faith.
Well, my book, obviously, because I'm a Christian, it comes with a Christian perspective, and it was written with probably a Christian in mind, a Christian audience, a Christian reader. So I hope that the reader, and if they fall under that category, if they're a Christian, that they would come out of that encouraged, um, in their faith journey, encouraged in, just like we're talking about with all these other things, and staying disciplined to your faith, and how you do that in today's world when there's so many ups and downs in life. We make mistakes, we fail, we fall short. And how do you work through some of that and still stay connected and rooted in God and hold that first and foremost in your life?
Mm.
And so I just hope to encourage them in that, and like, keep fighting the good fight. Don't give up. And think of, the whole book is kind of under the theme of a mustard seed of
Right.
faith, that all we need is this tiny little mustard seed, and God can use that to move mountains, and he will. And that is what we can have hope in. We can have hope in him and stay rooted in him and watch him work and watch what he has plans for, and that we have the privilege of being able to be part of that, and what we get to experience in life by saying yes to him and what he has planned for us. And so I just want to encourage people to dig into that and search. So I have a lot of, at the end of each chapter in my book, there's a lot of questions to dig deeper and really reflect. It is not a book to speed through. It's a book that I really intentionally made to really spend time with, and give to God and give some quiet time and really reflect on some of these concepts to go deeper in your faith and stay connected to him, and not let him get so distant that then your faith becomes dormant.
Mm.
Or even for people who are not believers or who aren't Christians but are interested in learning more about what is involved in this faith, and why maybe they feel like they've encountered different Christians and think that we're
Mm.
hypocrites,
Mm.
or think that we demonstrate different things and aren't consistent in our messaging. And so this, I think I would hope that this would kind of clarify some of this, and that for all of us, it's a journey and it's a process, and we're constantly um, growing and transforming, and it's messy, and we're not perfect either, and
Mm.
we need grace too. And so just kind of walking through all of that I would hope would encourage believers and maybe help others who might just be curious about checking it out, or better understanding where we might be coming from.
Hey, Joey Pinz here. Want to take your podcast experience to the next level? I'm excited to invite you to become a YouTube member. It's the absolute best way to support the channel and enhance your connection. Join our amazing community and unlock the incredible perks, custom loyalty badges, exclusive emojis, and priority comment replies. Your voice will always stand out. Be the first to watch new videos with early access, receive special membership shoutouts, and get exclusive behind-the-scenes photos and updates. Dive into content available only to our members, special videos, deep dives, and insider perspectives. Engage directly with me. Suggest podcast topics you want to hear, and even get personalized video shoutouts. Hit the join button right now and become part of something special. Let's build this amazing community together. I can't wait to welcome you as a new member. Join the Joey Pinz family today. Yeah, I think it was Gandhi who said, I love your Jesus, but I certainly question some of your Christians, or something like that. And you
Yeah.
mentioned the mustard seed. I think we find that in the New Testament in Matthew, where he said you have to have as much
Yep.
faith as in this mustard seed. So in the book you describe, you say, wake up your faith, that it's not, the irony is that you say it may be dormant, but you need to wake up. You use this term wake up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Tell
Yeah.
me why.
Yeah. Because I think, like I said, with a lot of our challenges in living out our faith, we can kind of fall asleep in a ways. Like, we can back up a little bit, we can put God on the back burner, or we might not want to have that uncomfortable conversation or do that uncomfortable thing or whatever it is. So we kind of push it back and just think, well, I'm just going to do me and you do you, and that's it. And so I think, I've even seen it, not to compare, but again, from my experiences in Senegal, the Christians there are under true persecution. Like once they decide, if they've grown up in the Islamic religion in their families and they have encountered Jesus and they decide to follow Jesus, a lot of these are the Christian partners that we go work with over there. They tell us their testimonies and their stories, and some of them are literally running and hiding from their own family members, that they are worried that they are going to kill them. And some of them have even grown up as the Taliban boys. And so now they try to carefully even do ministries with those boys, now having been in that situation too, and in really relating and understanding their circumstances and how to help them. But it's like there's no holding back with them, and sometimes they have to tread water carefully, but they're still fighting the good fight. Like they're in it. Once they make that decision, I think, to follow Jesus, like they had to have it in their mind, like, this is really what I believe because my life is on the line. Right? And I think sometimes here it's very different. We don't necessarily have those type of obstacles, but we do have other obstacles. And again, I was also in a conference for women, and there was an Iranian pastor who was speaking, and his wife was an Iranian woman, and he had moved his wife to the US to try to start a new life. And he's like, we were going to have a good life and come here. But she said as soon as she got here, it didn't take long that she felt like she was falling asleep, that she was under this satanic lullaby, that she would rather go back and be in the throes of persecution that were keeping her on her feet than to be in the Western world feeling like she was falling asleep under this satanic lullaby. And that also really hit me, like, in a different way, especially given my experiences with my Senegalese friends and their stories too. And just really made me think, is that true? Like, is that happening here in the Western world? Are we under this satanic lullaby? And it is Satan at work, which, yes, I think he is clearly, in any way that he can pull us away from God and our faith. Like, he's going to do it. And if that means that for us, that because we don't feel like we're under so much pressure like this to on our lives on the line, that it's going to be easier for us to kind of retract and not stay on our feet and not keep this as a priority in our lives. And so I think some of this, when I say that in my book, like, again, just assessing, where are we with that? And are we falling asleep? I can't judge that for anybody else but myself, but just putting the question out there for each person to assess. And, how active are you in your relationship with God? How closely are you following him? And where are you at?
Yeah, Carl, you talk about your battle against complacency. Is this another way of saying satanic lullaby? Is this similar?
I think it could. Yeah. I think a lot of these, like, yeah, things can get in our head that we can, I guess, complacency, or just, I don't know. I guess that's just what I think. I guess that's what I believe. And just thinking, that's enough. But then if it's not truly radiating, it says when you when you love me with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. And when you seek me like that, you will find me. So to me, like that, all with all of your being, I think that's a lot more than a lot of us are doing.
It's a satanic lullaby. So she didn't have to be on her toes and defend herself all the time. So she didn't feel she just got so used to that when it wasn't the case here. The satanic lullaby, that's very kind of draconian though. That's
Mhm.
yeah, I mean it's very it's just different here and she's not being persecuted, so she felt like that was the I don't quite understand why she would feel that way. What was she expecting when she was here? Did she think that she had to keep defending herself and her religion and her posture?
Well,
I wonder.
yeah, she didn't get into the details. This was
Mm,
just like a speaker on the screen. I just, only have my takeaway and my
mm,
interpretation,
mm,
of what she could have meant by that. Um, and not necessarily, maybe, she felt herself just falling away from God. Like maybe because she didn't, like maybe she felt like she needed that or was used to even that type of environment. And that caused her to continue to go after God and seek Him for His help.
hmm,
And so I think a lot of times when we're not in like really challenging situations, we might think, I've got this. I'm under control. I don't need God.
hmm.
And when we start to have that kind of, I guess, mindset about things, then yeah, we're pushing God further and further away.
Hmm.
And in a way where we could be becoming under this satanic lullaby, we could be falling asleep in our faith and what is crucial to staying connected to God because we think we're good and we don't need his help.
Carl, you've got 4 children, some adopted, some biological. What happens in a Christian family when a child doesn't exactly, kind of represent and have the same, intake, um, acknowledgement of Christ as the parents and others?
Yeah, that's a real thing, right? Like we have a almost 19-year-old in our house right now, and she is, she'd probably say she's agnostic right
Uh,
now, where she just isn't sure. She, doesn't want to claim one way or another. And so, I think we're we're in the process of all of that right now. We,
mm,
as parents and as believers, like, yes, that is what we teach our kids. We have grown up, they all made their own decision. We did not baptize them as young children until
mm,
they decided that that was something that they wanted to do. We didn't want to feel like we were forcing that on them. And again, like just like God gives us free will, he doesn't make us robots and doesn't make us follow him. He gives us a choice. And I think it's that same way in our families. Like I think we do have a job that God gave them during their time on earth here to us to raise and to train and give them guidance and teach them his word and teach them about him. But ultimately, as they become older, they need to make that decision for themselves. And we
mm,
don't want them to feel like we forced it upon them. And, even our oldest daughter right now, I think she does struggle with feeling like you don't accept me, or just because she knows that we think or we believe differently than she does. And so it's like, how do we still have the discussions? How do we still stay open? How
mm.
do we still show love and respect to one
Empathy.
another?
Yeah.
as we're having these discussions and as we're having differences
Good.
in beliefs. And I think that overall is where it needs to stay, and where we hope, that it can continue to go, that we can just keep having healthy conversations about it and be respectful of each other and each of our decisions. And again, yeah, it's hard as a parent, like you hope for them to believe and to follow, especially when it's such a huge part of our lives. But um, again, I don't want to be, overruling and forcing it either, because that's not the way God works. And it's 100% love
Mm.
and free will, and this is your choice. And I believe he will call, he will do the work and touch the hearts, and that's not my job. I can pray, I
Mm.
can be consistent
Mm.
on my end and in what I'm trying to teach. Like, this is my bracelet here. I have all the fruit of the spirit. So this, if any goal of anything I want to be disciplined in, this is it right here, to stay rooted to God so that he can give me his fruit of the spirit. And that's all about love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. So are these the things that I'm modeling for my kids,
Hmm.
and making it clear that I can only get those from God.
That's wonderful, Kari, because Jesus is the role model, and he led with love, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes I have friends whose parents kind of really push the religion down. That's a wrong way to do it. The child is only going to rebel, especially when you're young like that. You feel everything. I can tell you that as I get older, I have much more questions than I have
Mm.
answers.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
has there been anything in the last month or so, Kari, that you changed your mind on?
Oh gosh. I don't know, in the last month, that I would have say I changed my mind on. I'm a pretty stubborn person. It's,
Really?
it's
Interesting. You don't seem it.
That's funny. um I don't know. I guess it's hard for me to put like this 30-day parameter around it. So maybe
Recent future, recent past.
yeah, maybe I'll take a little spin off this question. Cuz yeah, I think sometimes changing our mind isn't instantaneous, that it's a process. Um and so just last week, though, I did have kind of this magical spiritual experience that didn't necessarily make me change my mind about anything, but it reminded me and encouraged me of ongoing work that I'm doing to change my mindset in certain areas. So I'll get into those specifics in a minute, but I think I have to first explain what happened and then get into that. I had a close girlfriend visiting from out of state, and we took a couple of the days of her trip to just get away from my family too, since she was here, and we
Nice.
wanted to just get some quiet time alone. We got a rental in the woods. So this type of thing in my friendships is another thing I've learned to do in prioritizing and valuing my relationships in my life. But we arrived in this cabin in the woods at night, and we didn't really have our bearings about us. And so we turned on this patio light to see. We knew there was a hot tub out there, and we wanted to see where that was and just check out some of the surroundings. And from this light being turned on, it must have attracted this creature. And it started banging against the windows
Whoa.
repeatedly. And it kind of, we're in this new place in the woods, and we're like, what in the world? Because we're like, it doesn't look like a bird. It's it's smaller than a bird. Like, we were trying to figure it out. Never could figure out what it was. And eventually it stopped banging against the windows, and we decided that we would go out in the hot tub and be brave out in the dark in this place. So we were already like a little on edge from all of this. And so we went out and got in the hot tub. And as we're sitting in there and we turn and look at the house, this creature was still with us and was sitting in the eaves of the roof. And so we got to, and it was sitting pretty low, like just right across from us, sitting in the hot tub. So we got to examine it. And it was actually very beautiful. It was like this otherworldly kind of looking thing. And we still could not. I'm like, is that a like what is it?
Squirrel?
Still could not figure it out. So good
Hmm.
old Google, thanks to that, we look it up, and it ended up being a Luna moth.
Hmm.
Have you ever seen one of these?
No.
Okay, so it's absolutely beautiful. It like literally, we could not stop staring at us. It has like pale green wings, some of it almost kind of translucent, and had some purple detail on it and like these long ribbon like tails. You should look it up. It's absolutely beautiful. But along with searching to identify what this creature was, we came upon its meaning. And its meaning was all about hope, transformation, new beginnings, and rebirth.
Hmm.
And its only purpose in life is to reproduce. And they're rare for humans to see in their adult forms
Wow.
because they're nocturnal and they only live for 7 to 9 days.
Wow.
They don't eat during their adult form. Like,
Huh.
again, it was just like their only purpose is to reproduce, and then they sit here until they die. And so humans hardly ever see them. And so going back to this kind of relating to transforming my mindset, I think just for me, because I was like, this is a sign. Like, what is this trying to communicate to us? That's how I take things. That's what I do. I'm a processor. And anyways, I just kept thinking, like, yeah, being a hardworking, very disciplined perfectionist at my core, it has been really challenging for me to allow myself to slow down and to be still without feeling guilty.
Hmm.
And but I know that there's purpose, just like this moth, and their only purpose being to reproduce, that there is purpose in the seemingly small things too, and that not everything has to be grand or epic, you know, and that there's still power in the quiet, resting, reflecting phases,
Wow.
and that those are also necessary for growth and transformation. And so, although I know this and I'm trying to change my mindset to embrace this concept more fully,
Hmm.
I often just feel like I'm working against my nature in this area. And so, yeah, I guess I just say with that, this is just an example that sometimes it's not just about deciding to change my mind or to be different, that it's a constant process
Hmm.
of unlearning and relearning and catching myself in old patterns and trying again and again and choosing differently.
Luna moth. I believe Luna is moon in
Moon.
Latin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why it was attracted to the light when we turned on the porch
Ah.
light. I mean, moths are anyways, right? But
Right.
Luna, it says it's attracted to the moonlight.
Hmm. Oh,
Hmm.
wonderful.
And it's
So, so
beautiful.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just beautiful. So the knocking was it's flapping its wings on the window?
Yeah. It was like crashing into the window repeatedly,
Oh.
like head on, just kept coming because I think, it was dark out and we turned on the porch light, but then the house lights were also on.
Hmm.
So I think it was just attracted to all the lights and just kept trying to run towards the light.
Mm. Hmm. So, Kari, I started my business in the 90s. I was working way too hard, not paying attention to my, putting my own health in the back seat, working, long days, too long. And next thing I know, I'm in front of the doctor, and she tells me that I'm 340 pounds. And if I don't lose this weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. My daughter was just born.
Mm.
So it scared me.
Oh,
And I'm driving home upset. And so I spent the next 6, 7 months, lost about 130 pounds. And you can't look at it as a finishing line. When you're losing weight,
mm,
it's lifelong changes. It's not just temporary.
100%. Yes.
So when I tell this story, people always say, what's the secret? What you do? And there's no secret. Discipline is how I did it. I got
Mm.
motivated, I got focus, routine, etc. How does discipline play a role in your life, Kari Hunnicutt?
Well, first of all, good job. That's incredible.
Hmm.
That's a hard thing to do and hard changes to make. Um, I think, yeah, discipline is required in so much in life. I think it plays a vital role in our lives, and I think we need it to grow. I think it provides the structure and focus and consistency that allows us to break old habits and to work toward goals that push us out of our comfort zone and beyond what we think our limits are, mentally, physically, spiritually, all of it. I think it helps us make choices that align with our long term values rather than these short term impulses, which ultimately is so much more fulfilling, I think. And so, I mean, I have discipline. I know I use it in every aspect of my life,
Mm.
whether it's my um, goals I'm working at physically, whether it's my job, whether it's with my kids and my husband and our marriage, like all of it needs discipline. And I think it's always been a big part of my life, just instinctively. Again, I have been a self driven individual since I can remember. I even remember my sixth grade teacher telling me that I was going to give myself an ulcer. I didn't even know what that meant yet. Like, I had to
Wow.
go home and look it up. Like, what did she mean by that? Because I was so disciplined with my studies and I took everything so seriously, even as a little sixth grader.
Hmm.
Um, so I think for me and my journey, it I have learned that there's such a thing as too much discipline.
Mm.
And that in some ways, in my younger years, I would say that led me to be pretty rigid and lacking spontaneity
Hmm.
and never feeling good enough from being too self critical all of the time. And then hitting burnout, physically and mentally exhausted from things, but then just trying to keep pushing through. And so overall, like, it was kind of counterproductive. And so I've had to go through a process really to learn how to better balance this heavy, innate discipline nature in me. So it's
Where do
played
you?
a pretty big role in my life,
Yeah, pretty
with
big.
all of that. Mhm.
As far as a Christian leading, a Jesus modeled life, does discipline play a role in their life as well? You feel? Where does the Bible come in with discipline? You think?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And I think that's, a lot of what my book talks about too is,
Hmm.
I mean, if in a relationship, in any relationship in our life, like, take a friend for example, like, if we aren't disciplined in checking in with our friend and having conversations with our friend and carving out time to be with them and to really listen and share, like, where is our relationship going to go if we don't make those things a priority and are not disciplined in that relationship?
Hmm.
It's the same way with, as a Christian, with our relationship with Jesus. If we are not disciplined to read the Bible and to truly learn from it and know
Hmm.
what God is saying to us in his word, or if we are not in communication with him through prayer, or if we are not getting guidance from others when we stumble and fall or don't know where to go and don't have people in our lives like a spiritual mentor to go to, like that's going to be a lot more difficult to live out your faith and to demonstrate, um, how God wants us to live when we are not being disciplined in our practices and in our relationship to Him.
Hmm.
Does
And
that
even
answer your question?
there's yeah, I think the word discipline comes from disciple, and of course we know Jesus had disciples,
Uh-huh.
ones that want to learn. What motivates you, Kari?
Oh, I have lots of things that motivate me. I mean, my responsibility to my family, and I think just the mindset to always give my best in everything. My dad used to tell me that, like, just do your best. But when you really take that, like, okay, well, what does it mean then to give my very best in everything that I do? But overall, I think my biggest motivator is my faith. I don't believe that I'm here by accident or by chance. I
Hmm.
do believe that I'm here for a reason. And as long as I'm still breathing, that I have purpose and work to do. So that is very motivating to me. And I also believe it's urgent. Like we're never guaranteed a certain amount of time here on earth. So I think that also gives me a nudge to not waste it and not pitter around.
Family, legacy, faith. So given that those motivations, how do you measure success?
You're going to have another story from me because this is one that has been a life lesson for me. Because I would say I used to measure my success. It used to involve others and how responsive they were to what I was trying to accomplish. Since I think it was because a lot of my work has revolved around helping others. So I would need to look at, okay, well, how effective am I based on how you're doing? And my speech and my goals would be all about how they're improving on their speech goals, or especially with my kids. I think lesson really hit me hard when I was actually in a therapy session for parenting and communicating more effectively with one of my kids. And as I was giving my story to the therapist of feeling like a failure of a mom, because that was the feedback I was getting from my child of all the things I was doing wrong, the therapist quickly asked me how I was measuring my success.
Hmm.
And it really stopped me in my tracks. Um, and I was like, I don't know. I guess it is my teenage daughter's feedback to me, and assessment of me. And she responded, no, you need to redefine this.
Yeah.
Like, you can't base your success off of someone else's actions or opinions because, like, again, they have their own interpretation, their own spin on things. And so it has to be something that only you can control and work on and can independently assess yourself.
Hmm.
So for that particular situation, I had to change my measure of success to be like my consistency in how I was communicating and parenting her. So I just said, okay, how consistent am I in my expectations of her and following through with things that I am saying and doing? And how consistent am I in my messaging to her and my teachings? And most of all, my love and consistency in showing love to her no matter what. And so that became my new, like, as long as I was being consistent on my end, I couldn't look at how she was responding
Hmm.
because that was her choice. And so that was a huge learning point for me and transformation in my mind and how I was measuring success. And I think now, I even look like if I have to choose one thing over everything, because we can maybe measure success in different ways and have different goals and how we're measuring. But overall, as a blanket statement for everything, how I can measure my success is my proximity to God,
Hmm.
because I think everything else will fall into place after that. And again, that's comes back to my fruit of the spirit things, because the the closer in proximity I am to him and following him, then I think a lot of these other things and these qualities, or what a lot of my um, goals are in life, will come.
Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypins.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it. Yeah, oh my goodness, sometimes the separation of parent and child, those arguments can really be hurtful.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to take them, hard, and
Mhm.
because it's your flesh and blood, it's your family, it's your, uh, it's someone that you've known for your whole life. It's interesting to me that you say your daughter and you also mention God. So it's really in that circle of everything that's important in your life, how you measure success.
Yeah,
It's all right there.
it
That's your
is.
motivations is family, your faith, and how you measure success is directly related there.
Yeah. Yeah. They are. They really are. Because yeah, I think those are the things, that are really lasting. When you look at all these different achievements and goals and things that we're fighting for and where we're putting our energy, like those things are fleeting. They
Mm,
don't always stay, and we have different life transitions. We don't always stay in the same position at work. We don't even always work. We hit a retiring phase, and so like when I really have to break it all down and like what truly matters in life and what is all my time and effort, what am I putting into things and what's worth it? And yeah, with what I believe, and that I believe that there is more than just this life, and that we are fighting for eternity, and that God has something much bigger for us. That's something I can hold on to and fight for.
absolutely wonderful, Kari. I was so excited when we set this up. I know we had to move it a couple times, but I'm so glad we had
Yeah.
to. I'm so glad we talked. You inspire me. I love what you're doing. If anybody's listening, watching, how can they get in touch with you?
Probably the best place, I have a website, and that's
Yeah, sure.
devotedexplorer.com. So I have all kinds of things on faith, fitness, and travel on there too. And there's a contact page on the homepage too, if anybody wants to get a hold of me. And then they can find my book just by searching on Amazon, Dormant Faith by Kari Hunnicutt.
Kari, and of course, Honeycutt with two N's and two T's.
Yes.
Hunnicutt.
Yes, very different. Thank you for
Yes.
clarifying that.
I thank you so much. Next time I'm in northern Arkansas area, perhaps we'll get a cup of tea.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love that.
You be well. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word, discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others.